10 behaviors of victims of mental abuse by narcissists. Hearing from others who have survived the onslaught of mental abuse from a narcissist can provide you insight into how to handle your own circumstance. Such conduct could harm your prospects of achieving love and emotional fulfillment. A person's conduct may shift for any number of reasons. Emotional highs and lows are a reflection of people's behavior. However, one's behavior may be improved upon in the same way that any other part of one's life can be. Changes in conduct are the most obvious and deleterious consequence of psychological stress. In this video, I discuss some of the signs that victims of narcissistic abuse may exhibit. Number 1. Depression and anxiety. Do you know someone who just never seems to get over their constant worry and sadness? How much time and effort did you spend into checking in on them to make sure everything was all right? In other words, what appears to be the issue? It's possible the narcissist is mentally abusing this person. Being the focus of relentless criticism wears one down. This isn't as fast as the recovery time for a bruise that has been treated with cold packs. Abuse on the mental plane creates deep, permanent wounds. Verbal abuse, which can be subtle but devastating, usually occurs when the offender is someone the victim often interacts with or cannot avoid. If you expect to be abused in the future, you can't expect to feel upbeat and happy. Not anything close to that has happened as of yet. To put it more accurately, it makes individuals feel so hopeless and helpless that death by suicide becomes an attractive alternative. What will happen next is a mystery. Seek medical attention if this occurs. 2. Obedient issue. When one's actions are in line with what other people want or expect, compliance means doing no more than is strictly necessary. Obedience is a state of mind in which one always chooses to comply with a command, even though doing so would be contrary to one's values or principles. Compromising means agreeing to do something you'd rather avoid. Those who have been the recipients of mental abuse typically respond by becoming exceedingly stubborn in order to forestall any further harm. They may also place a high emphasis on their relationships with the abuser and or others. 3. Extreme self-doubt and an inability to trust one's own judgment. Anyone who has experienced mental abuse firsthand can attest to the destructive consequences it may have. Because of this, the victim feels humiliated. They appear weak and defenseless in this depiction. Many people who have experienced trauma don't talk about it for fear of ridicule or isolation. That's hardly the impression anyone wants to make, of course. Despite their greatest attempts, victims are consistently shown as helpless and vulnerable. As a form of psychological warfare, abusers often remind their victims of who they are. Hearing such nasty comments on a regular basis will cause serious psychological harm. The damage to trust caused by this will be significant. 4. They are emotionally unstable and unable to regulate their behavior. The human brain is the body's control center. It exerts total control over the person. The first step, before doing anything, is to do this. It receives information, analyzes it, and then determines what to do next. The victim's ability to keep their faculties under control erodes as a result of mental abuse, and the body's many systems revolt as a result. The affected person can no longer regulate their own feelings, wants, and urges. Without serious repercussions, moderation is a necessity that cannot be ignored. It causes people to say and do things they would later come to regret. 5. Irrationality, the propensity to act or react without sufficient reason. Displaying extreme displays of emotion, such as hysteria or oversensitivity. Victims of psychopaths lose the ability to reason. Their victims are taught erroneous ideas that aren't always damaging or biased. According to this view, victims are completely expendable. Because of this, the victims end up thinking and acting in ways that aren't correct. When you are falsely accused of or judged negatively for something you did not do or did not have, it is normal to feel intimidated. Number 6. Gloom and despondency. Is there someone in your life who just never seems to have a good attitude? Is there such a thing as a person who doesn't care about anything other than staying alive? Someone who is so worried about himself and the world that they are almost at the brink of despair. A person who has suffered mental abuse may lose faith in oneself and their ability to cope with future challenges. A pessimist views the past, the present, and the future with pessimism. They anticipate the worst and are less optimistic. Negativity toward the future is thought to be intentional. Defeat is one outcome of mental maltreatment. Depression is the only appropriate emotional response to this kind of debasement. Having lost faith in yourself, you may begin to feel unworthy of happiness, taking every precaution possible to protect yourself from harm. 7. Unproductiveness. A victim of mental abuse will eventually lose interest in even the things they once enjoyed. Despite having access to every available tool, they continue to make little progress. They know what must be done, and they know they have the ability to accomplish it, but they don't want to do it. They have learned to always expect the worst because of the treatment they receive from narcissists. So, a negative view on life, especially if you believe that no one values your efforts, is toxic to your pursuit of meaningful accomplishment. Number 8. They lose all sense of responsibility and safety. In psychology, recklessness is defined as a flagrant disregard for one's own or other people's safety. Victims of mental abuse are more prone to making rash choices under pressure, which can lead to a destructive cycle of codependence with their abuser. Reason for this is that abusers frequently place their victims in stressful environments, both physically and mentally. Taking matters into one's own hands almost always results in a worsening of the situation, creating a catch-22. They will become careless or unable to make good decisions as a result of the emotional and psychological torment they have undergone. 9. Resentful. Negative words or thoughts thrown at you with malice are upsetting. It is understandable for the abused to feel resentment toward their abuser after witnessing or experiencing their harsh actions. When abused people think back on the terrible things that happened to them, they often become filled with resentment and a need for revenge. Especially for narcissists who appear empathetic, the time will come to demand retribution, exact vengeance, and justify one's horrific experience. If you've been on the receiving end of a narcissist's demands for special treatment, you've probably had enough. Because of this, you're set on bringing them to their knees and stripping them of any power. Unintentionally, victims vent their frustrations on those around them rather on the narcissist, who they know will not change their behavior. 10. Unsettled. Those who have suffered emotional abuse at the hands of a narcissist are notoriously difficult to empathize with. They behave properly because they are afraid of the narcissists. Unsettling characteristics, such as showing signs of tension or restlessness. Victims have trouble remaining seated. People are too distracted to do anything for very long. Anxiety or stress about something that isn't a real threat may be the cause of their fidgeting. Nail biting, foot tapping, and tapping fingers on a tabletop are all practices that can help people with anxiety. You or someone you know may have had or be experiencing narcissistic mental abuse. Most people who escape emotional or psychological abuse report altering their behavior as a result. Victims' recovery may be aided by their capacity to make the aforementioned behavioral changes. If you want excellent results, consulting an expert is a good idea. If you got something out of this video, like and subscribe. If you find this information to be true, I encourage you to watch my other films regarding narcissists.